Olathe Spark Starters podcast, where it is our mission to inspire innovative ideas and empower educators to cannonball into personalized professional learning. We're your host, Jordan Billings, 7th grade social studies from Indian Trail Middle School.
And Ryan Stephans, 8th grade social studies from Summit Trail Middle School.
Our goals for this episode are to help listeners understand the importance of pedagogy, content, and technology working together to give the listeners a preview of the school year.
So we're going to go ahead and get started right off the bat with what are the goals for the podcast this year?
So our focus for this year's podcast is to help shine a light on student engagement and also how technology can support student engagement and the big three here in Olathe.
And really our goal even last year was to highlight teachers in the district who are doing awesome things. We want to continue to encourage teachers to take control of their professional development that meets the needs that they have in their classroom.
So why the focus on technology with engagement this year?
So our podcast is focused on the big three and how instructional technology can support that, specifically with student engagement. We all know that technology is super engaging to students, but we want to make sure that we're supporting our standards and also integrating technology in meaningful ways. Then we can really, truly make sure that we are using technology to transform teaching and learning. It's really not about the resource or the app. It's about how you're using the resource or app with students in your classroom. So, for example, let's think about the website and app called Flipgrid. Flipgrid is an app that allows for students to post a response to a prompt or a question. I can use that tool in my classroom for just that purpose if I wanted to, but a truly engaging way to use Flipgrid is to have students respond to a prompt. Then, using Flipgrid, you can actually connect to another classroom, let's say in New York, and now my students are motivated and they have a broader audience to dialogue back and forth with. Now they're engaged. This is a great example of how instructional technology can support student engagement.
Great. So when we're talking about a lot of this, and it makes me think about the SAMR model. So is that what we're really looking at focusing on?
Kind of yes and no. So the CMR model is something we're all familiar with. It is a good model for kind of defining how we're using technology, but it shouldn't just be our end goal to stretch everything to the redefinition level. So a lot of times when teachers are like, hey, I'm using this app, and they're like, oh, how can you stretch it to redefinition? And they change it and twist it and tweak it just to move further on the CMR model. But there's actually time and place for substitution. We don't need everything to be at the redefinition level.
Yeah.
So I was kind of excited this summer. I was actually introduced to the TPAC model, and I was really challenged by it. So it just makes a lot more sense. TPAC is technology, pedagogy, and content. And it just really focuses on bringing all of those three together. And I feel like we already know good pedagogy and we know our content. So as teachers, we're already competent in those two areas. Technology kind of ends up being this thing out there by itself. And so hey, once in a while, let's bring technology in. And then the focus is all on the technology. But this TPAC model really kind of focuses on intertwining all three of those pieces, the technology with the pedagogy and content. And they should really be equally represented when you're designing lessons. And so as I learned more about that model and looked at lessons, it started to make sense of okay, I know pedagogy, I know my content. How does technology fit in with that? And really pushing myself to develop good lessons that didn't kind of was unbalanced, where I have really good pedagogy, but maybe I start to lose the content because I get so focused on the technology. So we want them to be really balanced. And I think that's the big thing is when we engage students in technology, sometimes we lose good pedagogy or the content disappears and we can't have that disappear because then our standards disappear. And then our class is out of control or we're just, doing something for fun and that's the only reason. So
TPAC is kind of the way to sort of help us balance stuff out and making sure. As I was hearing you talk about this, I was almost thinking that if you were to draw an analogy or whatever, looking at technology is like the big bad wolf. And you have pedagogy and content as the little pigs are like hanging out, and then like, oh, we have to have the big bad wolf come in every now and then.
Right.
But yet TPAC sounds like it's, no, everybody's all together, like everything works, interconnected.
Right. And I think that's the thing with technology is, especially if you feel less comfortable with technology, you feel like you have to focus so much on technology that you kind of forget the stuff that you're really good at. And so that's what, this episode is all about. We don't want to get rid of the good stuff. We don't want to get rid of the pedagogy and the content that we already know. That should still be there, and it should support the technology. So yes, I would agree.
Okay.
It's all same page.
And don't you think, like, when I think of the TPAC model, it's really like almost like a Venn diagram with 3 circles. You've got your content, your pedagogy, and then the technology. And all of those kind of working together help form that amazing lesson.
Right. Because you're right. And we have those 3 circles in a lesson. They could still be really separate, right? Like the first part of our lesson could be heavy in content. And then we bring in this technology piece, and then we end. Yeah, you're right. It's overlapping. So it is very much like a Venn diagram. And if you look up an image of it's overlapping those circles, and having a strong lesson is then balanced in the center.
But that it is okay for stuff to kind of be outside of the circle. So like, for example, when you think about technology, we're talking about Flipgrid, that like we're probably going to have to take a little bit of time to focus on that technology so the kids know how to use the program and doing that. But then let's get inside the interlaced part of the circles and like, okay, now we know we're going to have to spend some time teaching you how to use it, but then we need to move back into balancing everything out.
Right. Definitely. And I think that's something, we do have to be aware of. There are going to be times where we have to teach a tool. But when we're designing lessons, it shouldn't be just about teaching the tool. So yes.
All right. Some great insights there. So what can we expect from the podcast this year?
So the goal for our podcast team is to kind of start the year talking about things like the TPAC model and the pedagogy, kind of focusing in on that, and then kind of move into talking about content and our standards, and then wrapping up with maximizing that instructional technology portion and kind of just really truly how we integrate technology in meaningful and impactful ways by using our data and what our students really need to be successful.
All right. That's some exciting things coming up on a Spark Starters podcast. So if listeners want to learn more from you, where can they find you online?
So I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is just klester02. So it's KLESTER02.
And you can find me, Ariel, on Twitter at Mrs. Jankord, Jankord.
I'm sure that we're probably going to be listing some of the stuff in our show notes and everything so that you can find all of that.
Yes, definitely. Kind of have some links to share more about the TPAC model if you're interested in that. And then also kind of some of the ISTE educator standards as we think about designing lessons.
Okay. So as we're kind of thinking about our next phase here, who is somebody that is in the district who has been a Spark Starter for you?
I got a great one here. This year, Megan Comp joined us at Summit Trail, teaching 8th grade English language arts. She's been outstanding at integrating technology with good pedagogy. Just recently, her students were working on narrative nonfiction writing through investigative journalism. And she sent out a link to a Padlet so that teachers got a chance to comment on students' writing and offer them feedback that students just dove into today to help revise and improve their writing. And now she's working on partnering with community organizations to provide even more authentic audiences for our students. So getting them beyond the 4 walls of our school and her classroom to bring all of that together with something as simple as writing tasks.
That's nice. And you talk about, that's the thing that we all kind of want them to do, which is to know that the stuff that we're teaching, whether it's technology, whether it's content, whatever it is, that it goes outside of the 4 walls and that you can use that and do a lot with it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
As always, check out the most recent aim to nominate a Spark Starter. There's a tab and a form to fill out where you can nominate somebody who's sparking innovation around you so that they can be recognized in the district.
We'd love for you to reach out to us on Twitter. You can follow us at Olathe Spark. I'm Jordan Billings. You can follow me at Mr. Billings Class.
I'm Ryan Stephans. You can follow me at Coach_Stephans. That's STEPHANS. Until next time, keep sparking innovation.